Hello everyone, my name is Taryn Carlson and my presentation is going to be about preschool suspension and expulsion. The preschool suspension and expulsion issue is one that pinpoints the highly disproportionate amount of preschool suspensions and expulsions. According to recent data, nationwide about 250 children are suspended or expelled from preschool each day. This is a problem because it causes less access to support for the children. They are missing learning opportunities and they also aren't getting into the beneficial programs that they could be to help their behavior problems. It also creates tension between the family and the school because families are frustrated with the school system and children may be blamed by their families. They don't know what's going on, especially if this is a reoccurring problem for the family. The children's progress is being halted because they are missing those teaching moments and instead are being suspended or expelled. And when they aren't in the classroom, this is causing issues for them. It also causes self-esteem issues for the children because they lose confidence and they don't see themselves as good enough. The two issues I'm going to talk about today are that the suspensions and expulsions are biased towards children of color and the behaviors are not enough to justify these consequences. Suspensions and expulsions are largely biased against children of color. According to recent data from the U.S. Department of Education, Black children are 3.6 times more likely to be suspended from preschool than white children, and African American children are only 19% of the preschool population, but comprise nearly half of all suspensions. Something interesting from my research was a study conducted by Walter Gilliam at the Yale Child Study Center. Suggested that many preschool teachers look for disruptive behavior in much the same way, in just one place waiting for it to appear. The study showed that white teachers have an implicit bias to look towards the children of color and expect those bad behaviors happening to them, which is why they are getting expelled and suspended more often because the teachers are expecting that behavior to happen and waiting for it to appear and seeing it as worse than if a white child was doing it. The study also found that teachers saw more hope of behavior change and showed more empathy towards students of the same race as them. Suspension and expulsion being biased towards children of color is a problem because children of color already experience bias, whether it is through their access to healthcare, their living situation, or inclusivity in society. And preschool suspension and expulsion only exaggerates this for them later in their education. The next issue is that the behaviors seem to not be enough to justify the consequences of suspension and expulsion. A lot of my research suggested that the behaviors that they are getting in trouble for are typical childlike behaviors, like mentioned in the quote here, crying too much, or just normal reactions to events that even adults would do. And so my question is, what is the basis for suspending or expelling a child, and what are challenging behaviors? And is there a guideline of what we see as challenging behaviors, or are they left up to our own opinions? It's not necessarily the behavior, but what the teacher sees as the outcome of that behavior. This is a quote from the study I talked about earlier, which just further shows that this is left up to the teacher's own judgment, the school's own judgment, and that in turn creates a lot of bias and unfairness from child to child through this issue. This is an in-depth look at the perspectives of this issue from the school system. I think they see it as a disciplinary measure, and they also aren't in the classroom to justify what these behaviors are, and so they are just trusting the teachers and the schools themselves to do their best. The teachers, I think, are also doing their best, and they may feel guilt of not being able to do more, and they also might not have the resources or the help that they need to help each child, and so they have to just do what they can do and give them the consequences. The children are not sure what they're doing wrong. They may feel out of place because they're being taken out of the classroom while their peers are not, and they might feel excluded from that. And the families are unsure of what to do, who to believe, and how to make progress. This leads me to what should we do about it? First, I think we should create a more open-minded view of behaviors, because while many children will grow out of these behaviors, a minority of children who struggle to manage their emotions and behavior may need additional support from caring adults or specialists to learn to communicate properly. This shows that some children, these behaviors they're doing, they will just grow out of it, they can get support in the classroom and they will get better, and others might need additional support, and instead of giving them straight to being suspended or expelled, that takes away those support opportunities, and so creating more open-minded view, a more patient view will help in giving the support to the children who need it. Another thing I think we should do is have a more set in stone process for suspension and expulsion, which would include more teaching moments first and a more lengthy step process before we go straight to the consequences. And I also think we should continue efforts being made to end expulsion and limit suspension. The most important thing I think we can do is create a more diverse staff, because implicit biases are just that, subtle and often unconscious subconscious stereotypes that guide our expectations and interactions with people. This just shows that we aren't purposely being biased, but we do have an implicit bias, and the more diversity that we can get, the more different biases we can have, which then allows us to advocate for different children and make every child feel seen as well. And then also creating smaller classroom sizes and giving more support into the classroom will also help this issue in being able to provide support when those behaviors are coming up. These are my references, and this concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening.